All right, I think we're live as we're going to be here. What's happening, everybody? Happy Monday to you. Wait for it. It's my favorite part here.
My favorite part.
Hanging out with my buddy, Eric Silverman, the host of the Rockstars Rockin' podcast that myself and the Podcast Launch Lab had the privilege of being a part of in order to get launched, which it's all going down, tomorrow, huh? We're launching this thing?
Tomorrow is the day, my friend.
Fire that way up. Congrats on that. So I always like to have a conversation with students that are about to launch their show because, well, we've helped them get to the finish line. And I always like to help other people better understand exactly, why you decided to start a podcast, because those are all really important things to consider when you're starting a podcast is, why do I want to start a podcast? So I guess we can start there. Where you woke up one day and said, today's the day I started this podcast. Why don't you walk us through that?
Yeah, man. So ever since I can remember, I back in my my old days in a different career form, I would just every time somebody did something good, I would say rock star, like you're a rock star. You like keep crushing it. You're doing great. And when social media came about and hashtags became a thing, I started just saying hashtag Rockstars Rockin'. Every time somebody did something great, hashtag Rockstars Rockin'. So a couple years ago, I secured the domain Rockstars Rockin' because my idea was to have a podcast, and all I wanted to do was feature incredible people from all over the world, all over the country, who are doing great things. Whether it's in my industry or not, it's irrelevant. They're crushing life. They're crushing their business. They got tiny tips that they can add value to other people's lives. And quite candidly, I just never pulled the trigger. It's been 2 years of owning a domain, and I never pulled the trigger.
It's funny you say that because people ask me the biggest barrier to entry of someone starting a podcast, their biggest pain point, and it's exactly that. It's procrastination. It's literally being able to get out of your own way long enough to actually do something and create something. So
bingo.
Congrats on being able to do that and take action. Starting a podcast on your own is not impossible, but it's not the easiest task in town. Number one. Number two, there's a lot involved that goes in with creating the show, planning each episode, logistics, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, TuneIn, Google Podcasts. There's a lot going on.
F that.
So you decided to, we had a little bit of an echo on your end there. Do you have a speaker on?
No, just my mic.
Oh, it might be because you're listening through your headphone or through your computer speaker. It's all good. It's not that bad. I can hear it because, well, it's my job, right?
Okay.
See, I started talking about the echo and I lost my train of thought. Oh, you decided to hire an expert to be able to help you get to the finish line. Why did you decide to do that?
Oh man, it never would have happened, dude. I hired you for the pre-production. I hired my boy Ryan Miller for post-production because I can assure you my bandwidth is about this big, and I knew it. So if it wasn't for you guys, it would still be a pipe dream right now. And I knew that I wanted to hire you because, I mean, dude, the list of people is the who's who of podcasting. And shit, just recently, you just helped Shay Rowbottom launch her podcast. I mean, come on.
Go.
Are we kidding right now? I mean, This is nuts. So if I could bring you on the team, if you could bring me on the team, and we could get this thing moving, it's been turnkey with both of you guys. I didn't have to do anything.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you. That's and we've also made some other moves. There's been a couple people that have seen your content that are in your network. You've sent over to me. I know Chuck Farmer, we're getting ready to launch his podcast. Got some great things cooking with his show too. So, but at the end of the day, you're not a podcaster. Like podcasting doesn't feed your family. So let's help us better understand what you got. I mean, what's your big boy job, right?
Yeah, man. So my big boy job is I'm in the employee benefits world. We help employer groups and people all over the country tighten up their benefits. Because let's just face it. You say podcasts suck. Employee benefits suck for most companies and most employees. That's what my shirt should say. So at the end of the day, I've been doing this 21 years at this point, and some of the most incredible people I've been able to help and partner with all over the country. And the reality, man, is everybody has benefits and insurance on their mind, whether they want it or not, particularly in the age of COVID. Nobody's canceling insurance. People are clamoring to get insurance because they don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Sure. So 21 years you've been in this business. Social media started to become relevant, I would say, about 10 years ago.
That's right.
Probably 2010 became relevant.
Yeah.
So you'd already been in business 11 years. Social media came onto the landscape here, and when did you decide that, you know, having a digital strategy is important? Were you there at the kind of the inception?
Yeah, no, not at all. I was about 5 years behind the ball, but fortunately, in around 2015, I saw the value of LinkedIn immediately, and I hopped on the LinkedIn train, and it's been just a godsend to my career, and it's exploded onto other platforms. And look, the reality is, back in my old days, I've always been an entrepreneur, Sebastian. I've always had my own company. I've never worked for anybody other than high school, but I always worked for one big, well-known insurance carrier, and I was branded as such. So when I left that world, I needed to unskin myself from the carrier days. I couldn't be recognized as that anymore, which meant, guess what? I needed a personal brand. So I've spent the last 5 years trying my damnedest to build a personal brand, which has helped explode my company, Voluntary Disruption, to the next level. And I think this is going to be a nice conduit to help us continue growing and getting the reach out there.
Absolutely. And that's the way that it should be done from now until forever. In my
Exactly.
opinion, your personal brand in perpetuity is now your reputation.
That's right.
So I would say let that sink in, but I don't like that term at all. Let that sink in is very highly offensive. Okay. And we're living in an offending world. So I would hate to offend someone.
Yeah, no, don't want to offend anybody.
That's another podcast episode, Eric. But you've been in business for 21 years and you pivoted 15 years later into the digital space. You would consider it late to the game. I don't think there's really a time frame. The important part is that you're in the game.
Right.
But for those of you watching and listening right now, for those of you that have a day job or you have a business that you've built like Eric's, where you work with a company or for a company, but you essentially work for yourself. If you have a job, if you have a boss, if you work remotely, if you have any type of traditional business, I don't care what you do or how boring you think that it is, there's someone out there to consume that content somewhere along lines. Number one. Number two, I'm going to let you all in on a little secret. When you're creating content and your job is really boring, like you do like litigation, like
insurance.
Insurance, right? You don't have to talk about what you do.
That's right.
Fact, it's better when you don't. It's better when you talk about something that complements your brand. So for example, Eric's starting a show to feature other people that are doing great things in life in general, not in the insurance business, not in the benefits business, but where his business can tie in, and it will tie in eventually, is this episode of the Rockstars Rocking Podcast is brought to you by Eric's benefits company.
Right.
That's how you're able to fold in what you do and make it partially relevant. People start to ask, what is that? Well, that's my day job. This is my passion on what I'm doing here. So the reason I wanted to bring you on and go live and chat about the podcast launching tomorrow was, number one, we helped you do it. So we're very much involved and excited for you. We share your excitement with the launch, but more important, you're I don't want to use the term everyday Joe, but you're very, the individuals that are watching this can probably resonate with you. Has a job, has a family, has a side hustle. Like but the side hustle came along with the content part. It came along with making a decision to get out of your own way and start creating content and building something above and beyond your benefits business. A personal brand is doing just that, right?
Exactly. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, man, a lot of my connections on LinkedIn and social media happen to be in the employee benefit space. They happen to be in the insurance world, and that's fine. And I'm going to highlight a number of those folks. And yeah, at some point we may talk about benefits, but I made a purposeful effort to tell every one of my guests that I've already interviewed that we have in the pipeline that we don't have to talk about employee benefits or insurance. I want to talk about you. I want to talk about what you do in your hobbies, what you're doing, what you're passionate about. And some of these conversations have been absolutely incredible. And it's far surpasses the insurance and employee benefit space. I just like sales and marketing and management and leadership. So I've reached out to folks that I've looked up to for years. And I got to tell you, if anybody's launching a podcast, people love to be interviewed. If you reach out, I got to tell you, it's very rare, if ever, that I've had somebody say, no, I would not want to be on your podcast. It's very rare for that. So you can get some of the most incredible people that in a million years you may not think you could get just by asking.
Oh, I've built my brand interviewing people. That's the only way I can. Definitely had any other means of being able to get to people other than going, well, I've got the ability to interview someone. Right. They can be on my podcast. And I started my podcast 2011 for that specific reason, because the person that you're calling that you want to do business with doesn't want to talk to you about doing business with you. But when you reach out and show them that you're just there to talk about them and make it about them in through means of an interview, doesn't matter how it is, but this day and age, it's extremely easy to do. Well, then now you've got somewhat of a captive audience with that individual that you've been trying to chase down to attempt to sell them something. I can tell you this, they're more inclined, and I live this day in and day out, from whether I have guests on my show or I get hired by a guy like yourself that's just over the moon about his podcast launch and is telling everybody and anybody about it, including me in that process, and sending people that want to start a podcast, etc. There's a lot to be said when you're open to things outside of just what you're doing on a daily basis, and what you're doing, your personal brand goes above, far seeds what you're doing on a daily basis, I believe. And and then the next thing I want to talk about is that, you don't know where this show is going to go. You have no idea. And one of the number one questions I like to ask people is, what do you want your podcast to do for you? And, I think you and I have chatted about this before, but I think it's important to maybe revisit, what exactly your goal is, because eventually the show can be monetized, whether it's sponsors, affiliate programs, biz dev deals, JV deals, partnerships, reseller, some sort of means of being policies, finding clients, helping them out, etc.
Right. Yeah. Look, my initial why is just, I wanted to, this is, I hate this term. I really effing hate this term, but it's my millennial my millennial passion project, right? I hate that term, but it really is. I mean, there's no other way to describe it unless you can think of one. I just wanted to do this. I'm not shy on camera or video or audio. So I just thought this was a natural fit to do audio and video. And sure, could it lead to something in the future? Yeah, I've already had insurance carriers that know about this. I've already had some brokerage shops that know about this, that would love a big audience. And they're listening in. They asked me already, hey, are you planning on having real sponsors in the future? And my response was, I'm open to anything. I'm learning. And I said, I'll consult my boy Sebastian and figure out how that part works, because I think that's a chapter in your new book coming out.
It 100% is. Podcasts suck if you don't have one. We'll be on shelves wherever you buy books soon enough. I thought it was going to be the end of August, but it's soon enough, ladies and gentlemen. I would say with the end by fall. We were going to do it by summer, but that editing process is a little bit longer than I expected on here. So a podcast. So you've been in the business 22 years. You got into the social media space about 5 years ago. You're now all in with that process. In the next 5 to 10 years, you can potentially generate more revenue in 5 to 10 years with your podcast than you did your entire career. And it has nothing, and it may have to do something with your business, but maybe not. I mean, that's kind of crazy to even consider, isn't it?
Dude, it's mind blowing. And look, I'm the guy in 2009 or 10, whenever Facebook came out. I remember my wife got it and she's showing it to me, and I was like, mildly interested. But I'm looking and I'm like, that's just where like 10-year-old girls go to post pictures of their food they had for breakfast. Like, what do I need that for? And then it just exploded, and I started learning it. And now all these years, I study it. I watch YouTube videos. I read books about social media and LinkedIn, and you got coaches out there that you can hire. And believe it or not, I'm no expert on LinkedIn and social media, but I've actually been paid. I've had people hire me to help coach them just on how to build a personal brand, because I literally did it between 2015 and 2017, and the rest has been good history.
So it takes a little bit of time to get into the content game, to like create a habit, to be able to like start creating content. you know, because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed with the idea of what it may look like to start creating content. And then that's when the excuses start to show up and we start to write, you know, different stories and different outcomes about things that don't even exist pertaining to, well, I could do that. And I could do this. What do you think the biggest shift was for you to be able to go, you know what, I'm going to start taking this whole personal branding thing seriously and I'm going to start creating content around it? When did that happen?
So I don't think I ever shared this story with you. A lot of folks that I'm connected with know it, but I'll share it real quick. You know when it started happening for me to get in this habit and this routine? I'm going to tell you right now. National Cupcake Day. That's right. National Cupcake Day. You say, what the fuck is he talking about? Yeah. So Sebastian, we've only been connected for a few months. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's not a day that goes by, 365 days a year, including weekends, where I don't post something that's national, whatever the F day, National Podcast Day, National Cupcake Day, National National Cheesecake Day. And how did that start is what really was the catalyst for my social media branding growth. I was sitting at breakfast with my then 6 or 7 year old daughter. I think she was 6 at the time. And we're literally eating breakfast. And the news pops on in the background and says, hey, go grab your cupcakes today. Today's National Cupcake Day. And she's 6. So she was like, oh, I want a cupcake. Can you get me a cupcake today? And I'm like, all right, I'll pick one up on the way home from work. No problem. Did it. Never thought about it. Next morning, having breakfast, she says, Dad, what's today? And I don't remember the date, but I literally said Thursday. And she's like, no. What's today? What's today? You know, yesterday was National Cupcake Day. What's today? And I was like, oh, geez, honey, I don't know. Let me look. So I pulled out my magic pocket computer, AKA my iPhone, and I looked it up. And sure enough, dude, there's like 10 national days every single day. And I showed her the list and she thought it was a blast. So I kid you not, every day for like the next 6 months, she picked the national day. And I posted it on LinkedIn just for fun because I'm not a big believer that LinkedIn has to be all professional 24/7 and all suits and ties. So that started gaining a following. And I kid you not, all of a sudden over a few month period, I didn't have a brand other than, hey, you're the National Day guy. What's today's National Day? And I catapulted that into what I'm doing now and then some. And quite honestly, I still do it because it works. And too often as human beings, we do something for so long that works and then we stop doing it. 3 years later, we ask ourselves why we stopped and we don't have an answer. So this morning I posted national, whatever, I can't even remember. Like, it's just a habit. I don't even, it's like a robot now. Like I just do it and I get reactions, you know, and I love it and it's fun.
Well, it's relatable.
It's relatable. That's exactly right.
Everyone can relate to a cupcake. You know?
Exactly.
And if you can't, then we can't be friends. You know, if you can't relate to a cupcake, then you probably wear a mask in your car. All right.
Wait, well, those happen, that's in Florida too, not just Maryland?
Yes. The show launches tomorrow, right? Rockstars Rocking. That's what
Rockstars Rocking.
That's what you're going to search for in iTunes or Spotify. I think we may be able to get a jump on it before the launch. Is it live yet? Is it live tomorrow?
I think the first true episode is going to go live tomorrow, but the
teaser up.
The teaser episode is up.
Okay, that's going to let you. I'm going to drop a link in the comments. So after we're done, this will also be in the show notes. I'll turn this into a podcast episode so that you can go subscribe to it. It'll be a link directly to iTunes and to Spotify, the easiest ones I believe that people are listening to. But you can go do that right now. So if you're like, oh, I want to go check it out ahead of time, you can do that. It launches tomorrow with episode 1, but you can listen to the teaser and subscribe to the show. You'll be one step ahead of the game. You can even leave a review if you'd like to, get a jump on that too. That always helps. Well, Eric, it's an absolute pleasure to see yet another podcast being launched that we had the opportunity to have our hands on and be a part of. I hope that the process that whatever I've been able to bring to the table has helped empower you and encourage you on this podcasting journey, because you need every ounce of motivation and attaboys and attagirls you can get within this process, because there's several layers to it, and it's not as easy as just press a button and record. You can do that, but when you're looking to make sure all of your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, you definitely need the right tribe around you. You've done just that. So hats off to you to that. I'm stoked to, hopefully we'll have you back on when you hit 100 episodes.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about, I'm excited to see what's going to happen because you're a mover and shaker. So you're out there already having conversations with existing people that you've known for 22 years in your existing benefits business, and they're already asking questions, and you're like, I'm open. And in the beginning, you can be very open because, you're making up the rules. I mean, you always make up the rules as you go as far as how you end up monetizing the show. But I always like to remind people that it's the people that are already in your existing network that will get around the new idea of what you're doing, probably because they're not doing it and they don't understand, but they know that podcasting is here and that you talk to people and that you're in their space. And well, that's enough for them to stroke a check for $500 a month or whatever the case may be. But, congrats on the launch, dude. I'm fired up for you, man. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with all this, and stoked to continue to keep you here in the podcast launch lab, as long as I can, to see what we can do to help continue to take the show to the next level.
Yeah, man. No, I'm super pumped. I appreciate it. And if you want, let me take 2 seconds though and tell folks why I really wanted to bring you and my post-production guy aboard. I mean, the reality, Sebastian, bringing you aboard is the equivalent of hiring a personal trainer. And I'm not Mr. Fitness, but I have lost 20 pounds in the last 104 days, but who's counting?
Nice.
But here's the deal, right? I'm just as much in need of accountability as I tell my staff, my team members that work for me directly. Yep. And I'm all about it. So, dude, I never would have launched this. It would have just continued to be that pipe dream. But by literally spending money with you, that was my accountability to make this happen. And then the way that you have to put for timing, like the way you do notes, anybody who hires you, you'll see it immediately. But you keep us on target, and you're and here's the thing, I don't want to be the guy holding it up. So when you're like, dude, get me this, and then we're done, I can go do this. That's the most important thing that I needed. And I kept fooling myself for the last 6 months thinking I could just hit record. Yeah, maybe some people can, but it never would have flipped and happened had it just been waiting on me.
Right. I mean, if you're gonna do it halfway, but there's a right way and a wrong way of doing things,
That's right.
Hiring an expert that knows what they're doing. I'm a big fan of, if you don't like doing it or you don't know how to do it, then to hire someone that does.
That's right.
And get it done. So yeah, dude, I think this show is gonna rock. Pun intended. And I'm stoked I'm literally stoked for the launch. This is, by the way, there's always different music playing. That's because, I don't want to get sued, and I want to make sure we're playing royalty-free music. This is the background music for the Rockstars Rockin' podcast. So I'm really fired up to be rocking it here as we chit-chat a little bit about the show launch. It's all going down tomorrow. Wherever you consume podcasts, you can search for Rockstars Rocking. iTunes, Spotify. This is where I recommend you go and search. That way you can subscribe. You can leave a review if you'd like. And then episode 1 drops tomorrow. You got any ideas?
5 stars would totally rock.
Yeah, 5 stars would totally rock. Just like the outro says. That guy's voice sounds familiar.
Amazing.
Totally familiar.
Totally.
Well, dude, again, thanks again for believing in what I'm doing here at the Podcast Launch Lab. I'm wishing you nothing but the best for the show. And I look forward to continue to help you, swing for the fences for the next 1,000 episodes. How's that sound?
Man, I love it. It totally rocks.
So do you, bro. All right, man, we're going to turn this into a podcast episode. So podcast listeners, if you're listening to this, in the show notes, you're going to be able to find a link to be able to subscribe to the show. If you're watching this live right now, we're live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. All the links are going to be available in the comments. I don't know if LinkedIn, does LinkedIn stay around after? I don't know if it keeps the archive up. It may just be live, but in any event,
Rockstarsrocking.com. Rockstarsrocking.com.
Rockstarsrocking.com. That's with a G. Rockin', we like complete sentences here. Rockstarsrockin.com will take you right to the podcast website on here. Make sure you're connecting with Eric too. All of his LinkedIn and Instagram links will be in the show notes too. If you're watching this live, you can just search for Eric Silverman, just like it sounds. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the above. You need to take a look at benefits for your business. Hey, that's available too. That's not what this video is about by any means at all, but you can for sure chat with them about it. Hey, brother, keep rocking in the literal sense here, and I'm stoked for the launch tomorrow. Come back soon, will you?
Absolutely. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, man. Later, dude. Bye, guys.
Later.
Keep rocking. How do I turn this thing off? All right. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen.